Thank you all for joining me for this session on using chats in Flint. It's kind of a follow-up to last week's session where we talked about using activities. And in today's session, I'll kind of talk about the difference between those two in case people don't know yet. And also showcase a bunch of use cases for how chats can be beneficial to both teachers and students. So, as always, I'll start with some icebreaking news, and then I have this spiel about what chats are and features and capabilities to be aware of. And then afterwards, we'll walk through some actual examples together. So feel free to get Flint pulled up for that part. And then finally, hopefully, we'll have some time for you all to share out what you guys have been doing with chats and give our team some feedback. And as always, the recording will be available later, and questions are welcome at any time. Feel free to just raise your hand, interrupt me, put it in the chat, whatever feels most comfortable to you. So yeah, for today's icebreaking news, I promise I did not plan this, but actually yesterday, Anthropic, the creators of Claude, put out their education report on how educators use Claude. I think a couple months back, they posted one about how students are using Claude, but this time they actually look at the teacher perspective and how teachers are using Claude chats and also Claude artifacts to supercharge their teaching. So I think some of the things that they mentioned in this report were very interesting. I can also copy this and paste it in the chat for you all to see. But yeah, the top 3 uses among educators were developing curricula, conducting academic research, assessing student performance, and they analyzed 74,000 different conversations that Claude had with what they presumed were teachers. But yeah, so these are examples that we see teachers using Flint use very often as well. So it seems like many people are on the same page about this, and why faculty say that they use AI was also a lot of what we'd seen as well. Automation of tedious tasks, using it as a collaborative thought partner, and then personalizing learning experiences for students. So yeah, I'm highlighting all of these just in case there are people in the audience who haven't quite dove into AI yet and want to hear about what people are doing. But yeah, I do think the rest of the report that Anthropic put out is also very interesting. It kind of covers how much of the tasks teachers are automating versus augmenting, what they're using AI to fully replace, and then what they're using AI as a helpful partner to them. And yeah, I think one of the things that they're doing a lot of augmentation is with the teaching aspect. And one of them said what was prohibitively expensive in terms of time before now becomes possible. Custom simulation, illustration, interactive experiment, much more engaging activities for students. Yeah, so with that, I will plug our last week's session about activity building 101. I do think that today's session on chats will be very helpful for individual teachers as they're, creating lesson plans, rubrics, worksheets, getting feedback on their own work. But I do think activity building is the bread and butter of the Flint platform, and also where a lot of educators are looking towards as a great realm of possibility when it comes to using AI for school. So yeah, highly recommend checking that out if you're not familiar with activity building in Flint yet. Great. Any questions for this piece? If not yet, all good, because I do have many a slide to get through. Okay, cool. So features and abilities about chats and things to be aware of. I guess first of all, I kind of covered this, but chats and activities in Flint are pretty different. Chats are those sorts of one-off conversations that you have just with the AI itself, and it's great for quick answers or ideas or free-form brainstorming or content generation, whereas activities are where you're actually designing the AI's personality, its goals, and you're kind of on the back-end side and actually doing prompting to get that activity to behave in a certain way when you share it with students. So yeah, that can be where the activity is designed to have specific outputs or interactions, like a role play or a debate, or acting as a quiz. And then you can share it as an assistant to the students. And then I also put recurring conversations here because one of the common things that I've seen teachers do and that I actually do in my own work too is if I consistently require like a certain type of assistant, for example, like I use a writing assistant to write some of the descriptions for these campfire sessions that I post in our newsletter. So then I've like created an activity that does that so that I can put in all of the background information about what it should know, how I want it to be structured. Um, yeah, but yeah, all that to say, we covered activities last week. This week we'll cover chats and kind of show you the power behind that as well. Yeah, and I guess firstly, a lot of people ask me like, oh, why should I use Flint chats? Why can't I just use something like ChatGPT? Um, there's a couple of different options there. I'm not going to tell you like, oh, you should only use Flint. It's the best thing out there. I do think that, it's important to kind of be aware of the tools that are available to you. But I will say when it comes to like actually using a AI tool for work, I do think Flint offers a lot in terms of privacy and also capabilities. So yeah, we've designed it for education. So there's a lot of data privacy protections that are in Flint as opposed to the lack of privacy protections that might be in like the free tools that are readily available for you all. Um, we've also added additional learning tools into Flint, like how it can understand a bunch of different languages and talk back to you in a bunch of different languages, coding, whiteboarding, image generation, and also on top of all this, it's like really easy to share within your own school the chats that you're having, the activities that you're creating. Yeah, so those are like just some of the things. If anyone has additional questions about this, feel free to let me know.
What's whiteboarding?
Oh, yeah, I can show you that in a little bit, but essentially there's a whiteboard built into Flint where students and teachers can actually draw what it is that they're working on. So we've seen some teachers use this as a way of like having student draw graphs for different mathematical equations. You can also like take a picture of something and like circle something that you're not understanding and then send that to Flint and have it help explain that specific portion. But essentially like a notating tool within Flint that you can add on top of images, graphs, or even just in of itself. Good question. Cool. Okay, and then I think this is my second to last slide. Yeah. So in Flint, chats behave differently for teachers versus students. And I'll actually show you an example here. But essentially, when you come into Flint, the chats are this first box at the top here. And we have different suggested things that are like commonly used by teachers. And as a teacher, you can also click on the for teachers kill and it'll flip around and show you what the students would actually see. So as you can see here, like the students chat shortcuts are more about learning. So it's geared towards like quiz me on material or tutor me on something or give me feedback. Whereas for teachers, it's more geared towards the sorts of tasks that teachers might need to do, like creating a lesson plan, grading rubric, writing report card comments, what might be helpful in those realms. And then as long as your school has set up the rules correctly, Flint will know who's a teacher versus a student. So then it can also respond accordingly to different questions that are being asked. So in this one, for example, this is a workspace where I'm deemed as a teacher. So I put in this problem and I said, help me with this problem. And then as you can see here, Sparky, our little assistant here, is very readily helping me with the solution. So, giving me all of the equations, kind of setting it up for me, and then it asks a couple more follow-up questions, but it's very like excited and helpful. Whereas in this example, once it loads, in this workspace, I'm actually considered a student. So when I give it the same prompt, I put in the same image, said the same thing, help me with this problem. It says it actually walks me through the logical steps of how to do this rather than going ahead and giving me like the exact equations that I would need to put in or need to memorize even. So here it's like, let's think of through this step by step. And then it says first, let's think what constant speed tells us. And it asks me a bunch of questions rather than just telling me what I should be thinking about the problem. Yeah. Any questions there on the behavior piece?
Does it, if the student like is repeatedly asking, does it level up the help as the student is like maybe not knowing where to start? And will it also continue to avoid actually giving the answer, but give like more scaffolding?
Yeah. That's the goal, as always. So it should continue to like ask better questions to the student. Sometimes it might give like a hint or something that might put the student on the right track. But it shouldn't be giving the answer to the students, no matter how much they beg or desperately ask. So yeah, that is how like Flint is designed. Of course, students are finding hacks for this all the time. So I do think like one thing to note here is that any sorts of chats that are happening in Flint, they're all stored and can be seen by your school's administrators. So if you have like a suspicion that your student might be misusing Flint, you can definitely also get the evidence for that.
I had a question on, it was really cool to see the difference between the teacher view and the student view. So when students register to use this, like how is that vetted? Is it just sort of on their honor that they register as a student?
Mm. Yeah, so when the school sets up the workspace, uh we have like someone on our team who like walks the administrators through all of these steps. But essentially the administrators will want to designate Flint basically saying these individuals are teachers and these individuals are students. And there's a way to like label them on the back end so that when they're interacting with the platform, they're like given the correct role. And by default, if anyone like joins the workspace, they'll be treated as a student. So it's more like teacher privileges have to be granted to people who join the workspace. Um, yeah, and so that's like kind of how it works.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, cool. Great questions, guys.
Okay, so I don't know if this is, part of the activity, but I have used Flint before for an activity where students were writing, and one of my concerns is like I like I liked that I could also use the Flint tool for grading the written, paragraph where they had to take a side in a scientific argument and then
Mm-hmm.
give like logical reasoning. My concern is that they're then going to leave Flint, go to ChatGPT, write their paragraph in ChatGPT, and then put it back into Flint. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how it does Flint have a pretty good like AI sniffer so that if it's written by another AI like ChatGPT, I can ferret that out as I'm going through the grading process. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
wondering like how good those tools are for, and I'm dealing with middle schoolers. They're not super tech about getting around things, but they kind of are because it's a private school and they're pretty darn smart. So yeah.
Well, that's a good question, Patty. Um, Yeah, I will say, like, as a company, we haven't really invested in the like AI detection aspect of all of this technology, um, simply because it's not very reliable, and there's a lot of research that shows that it actually can harm like certain students over other students. For example, students who speak English as a second language, their writing is more often flagged than students who are native English speakers, and there's just like a lot of false positives. But yeah, I think what we provide instead is sort of the visibility into how that's actually going for your students. So I think there's like two things here. First of which is when you're using Flint, you can see like the full transcript of how the student is having a conversation with Flint. So that will help you to see like, oh, are they like actually asking like any questions? Is there evidence of like deeper thinking as they're going through any sorts of activities that you design? And yeah, that's probably good evidence that they're actually doing the work. And then also like if they are like using Flint to and just like pasting in a like finished product automatically, then I think really it comes down to like the teachers themselves. I think a lot of teachers these days are kind of not super confident when I think they should be more confident in their abilities to recognize like what is student work and what isn't, especially for middle schoolers. So yeah, I think we're more so on the side of let's provide you with a tool where you can enhance thinking in the process that you're having students go through, and then also have visibility to how students are using AI positively, and more so like promote that positive use of AI rather than trying to like police the negative use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. If they go from 0 to a complete, like, overly well-written paragraph, that's probably a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, so I have like two more slides on this intro part before we dive into like the actual hands-on part. But yeah, there's a lot of features that we've added to Flint over the course of the last 2 years. I think a couple of people on the call here have been with Flint like over a year already, so I'm sure like you've seen how this how like the platform has really grown to encompass a lot of different things. But some of the things that I want to highlight specifically that are useful in chats when teachers are using chats are that Flint has a calculator. You can use it to actually do math calculations reliably, which a lot of the large language models can't do because they're based in language, not actual calculation. Yeah, we have the ability in Flint to search the web, so that can get you more up-to-date information and it can help you do research. It can help you cite sources. And then this is the whiteboard feature. I know Patty asked about it earlier, but here's like an example of how you could have a whiteboard where it like puts up a graph and the students have to like label the different points on the graph that are notable or show their work and like use their actual handwriting to show their work. So that's like a couple different ways to use the whiteboard. And then beyond that, we also have image generation, language support, and I think 500 different dialects of languages, and then also coding support and much, much more. I think on the slide, which you'll get in the at the end of the session, there's a link to our full like features list if you're curious about that. Yeah, and then so a couple things to note about chats before I dive into some actual examples of how to use them. There's a content upload limit of about 100 pages double spaced for each piece of content that you want to upload into Flint. So for example, if you're uploading like a reading or parts of the textbook or a website that you want Flint to help you analyze, you might run into issues where it says like, oh, this is too big of a file. And that is unfortunately like a limitation of AI right now and how much it can process at one time. So sometimes teachers have like broken longer things up, or for example, with like a textbook, it's probably not best practice to upload a whole textbook anyways, but you could like upload the chapter or like the specific explanation. Yeah, and then for image generation versus graphs versus whiteboard drawings, I also wanted to show an example of this simply because sometimes teachers have come to me saying like, why does this graph look so wonky? And I think it's just that Flint has used the wrong tool. So I wanted to show you all some examples of what that looks like so that you all can start to like notice if it's using the wrong tool. And then if it is, then you can ask it to like correct itself. But for example, like if I wanted it to give me a heart, if I said graph a heart, then it would use like the actual graphing capability. And here you can see like it has like the plotted points, it shows the equation even. But then if I said like generate an image of a heart, then it's using the image generation capability. So this heart looks very different from this one. And it's using very different tools for that. So then here, if I said like, what does a Bohr model look like? Flint's pretty smart and like automatically knows to use like more so its graphing and like diagram creation capabilities to make this. But then, oh, and also with the sine waves. But then if I say like, make me an image of a Bohr model, then it thinks like, oh, image means picture. So it generates like image with the image generation rather than using the um, diagram generation. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, so like for example, also with the sine wave, you can see this one, like all of the points are plotted. It's like showing you even like the period of the sine wave and like some more sine wave properties at the top here. And then this one looks like a sine wave, but you can see that it's actually used the image generation because like the squares aren't even and like the points are like not landing at the right places. So yeah, that's just like something to know as you're using Flint that sometimes you might want to just double check that it's using the correct tool to do what it is that you're asking it to do. Okay, and then I had like a couple more things on the slide, but I've grayed them out because I'll like show you them as we demonstrate the actual examples. Yeah, any questions about what chats are, how they're different from activities, and what they're able to do? Cool, awesome. So yeah, I'll run through some chat examples and yeah, so just to clarify again, the chats are usually what teachers are using for their own tasks. So here I'm going to show like worksheet generation, rubric creation, email writing, generated questions for students, and also project planning. And then activities are where you're actually creating like assistants that you send to your students, and then the students interact with those one-on-one and have more like fruitful conversations based on how you've designed the personality. Yeah, and then on the right-hand side here, I've like screenshotted some of the messages that Flint shows as it's generating the responses. Yeah, we'll see these in action, but essentially this is also a kind of hint as to which tool Flint is using. Like the draw is the image generation. It might create a document. It might use the calculator. Yeah, go ahead, Sheila. Oh, you might still be muted.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to give
Okay.
me some perspective, because this is the stuff I teach digital literacy, so I'm adding, AI literacy to that content. And then I teach Python with AI. So that's a different viewpoint. That's more like, hey, how does machine language work and things like that. So my question is, the whole school isn't turned on to Flint K-12, although they like what they're hearing. But I was supposed to lead a PLC, but because we got Blackbaud, we have to like table that for semester 2 because Blackbaud deploying that is semester 1. But all the courses that are requiring me to use Flint, and that's all I'm going to be using, dig my heels in that, are now during first semester. So can I open a like a classroom, or do I read the content that I learned this summer about, workspace management and ask my IT director to give me a space?
Okay, I see. So to clarify, your school doesn't have a space yet.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, you can make your own space and it's pretty straightforward. If you go to like flintk12.com, there's like a start for free button and then you just need to sign in with a school email and then it'll create a workspace where you're the administrator. I can send that link in the chat. And then from there, you'll have a Flint workspace. And then in there, you can use the chats, the activities. You can see all of the analytics. And then eventually,
I have been using Flint for the past year.
Oh,
So is
okay.
that an account?
Oh, then I don't think you need a new account. You can just continue using it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then what do I do? Say, how do I invite my students?
Yeah. So when you, I think I might need to like look at your case specifically because there might be like things that are set up on the back end already. Would you be okay with like us talking about this at the end of the session?
Yes, I didn't mean to interrupt. Thank
Oh
you.
no, you're good. You're good. You're
So,
good.
thank you so much.
Yeah, no, all good. Um, okay, Deanna's asking, is it possible for teachers to see the chats of their students and have a way to integrate the chat feature with the activity feature so that students are encouraged to use chat for research and questions and activities to engage with learning engagement? I see. Teachers can see chats within the activities that they've made. For chats that are like outside of the activities or outside of the teacher groups, those are visible to just the admin of the platform. And yeah, so that's like kind of one distinction. If and like why we encourage teachers to mostly use activities with their students, because then you can see like their submissions to the activities. But right now there's not like a direct connection between chats and activities, but I will show you like a process that I've been seeing some teachers use on their own end. But I think the student end is also very interesting, like using the chat for research and then activities also in different engaging activities on the side. I do think I've seen some teachers like just tell students like, hey, you can use Flint for your research, but then just have them like print out the transcript to show us proof of like how it was that they went about conducting that research. Yeah, cool. Good questions. Okay, so I will dive into these examples. I'm gonna go back to the home page here just to show you all what it looks like from the beginning. But within these chats, again, chats are at the top, activities are the bottom part. But within the chats, I'm going to select the one for create a worksheet. And so those shortcuts kind of just send this first initial message for me. And then the student, or sorry, and then Sparky will ask me more questions about what it is exactly that I need. So here it says, I'm happy to help you create a worksheet. Could you tell me some of these details? So I went ahead and wrote some of this. But basically I'm saying this is for AP calculus for students in grade 11, and I wanted to create practice problems for finding the derivative of integrals. So once I send that over, Sparky is saying, let me think. And then it says, perfect, I'll create this worksheet. Now it's saying, let me create a document. And this is where it's actually going to create like the document with all of the questions. And for those of you who have been using Flint for a while, you've maybe noticed this, but Flint didn't used to be able to put equations in the documents, but now those are available in the documents. So you can make full-on math worksheets that have all of the different equations in them. And for any of these, you can still like go in and edit the equations very precisely. But yeah, so now that we have that created, let's see what else was on my list for things to show on this one. Yeah, so you can use Flint continuously as a partner in all of this. So let's say like we've looked through those questions and then actually we wanted to add a section for indefinite integrals. I could ask Flint to do that for me. And then I could even say, show your work for one of the questions to double check how it's going to solve it. And yeah, anything under the sun when it comes to like actually editing what the final output is that Flint has given you. Yeah, so I think this one's the one where it has now added indefinite integral section in part C here. But yeah, I mean, it's as easy as that. Very quickly, you can get a bunch of practice problems. You could then ask Flint, like, hey, I want you to make this simpler. I want you to make this more complicated. Maybe you can even have it make 2 versions of the worksheet to share with different students based on how much they understand this topic. But yeah, and then with this worksheet, you can print it out, you can add it to your Google Drive. You can download it as a Microsoft Word document, or you can even copy all of this into your clipboard and paste it somewhere else. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Any questions for that one? Cool. Okay. So for this next chat, I'm actually going to go back to home and then use the create a grading rubric shortcut. So then here, yeah, I'm going to just tell it. It's going to ask me some more questions about what specifically I want, which is good. But I have pre-written this saying, I want to use this to evaluate fifth graders' narrative essays. What are some elements? Oh, wait, sorry, not that one. One second. I think I forgot to copy that one. But I can go ahead and just show you what it was that it created beforehand. So I said, create a grading rubric for me. And it was able to create this general grading rubric that's, pretty basic. And from here, I would suggest to most teachers, like, give it more feedback and more context on your students so that it can create things that are more personalized to them. So here I said, I want to use this to evaluate fifth graders' narrative essays. What are some elements you would recommend adding if this is the use case? And so it was able to, it said a couple different things. So some story-specific criteria, like structure, character development, etc. The age-appropriate focus, using a 4-point scale that's easier for students to understand, and also like including developmental considerations. And then I was also able to ask it, like, can you make a secondary rubric that's suitable for English language learners? And then it did that where it simplified the language, also included some like separate language skills pieces of the rubric, and made it really progress focused. So that's like kind of an example of what you can do there. You can even from here, ask it to make both rubrics in English and Spanish, and then so that the students like can see both of them if those are like the two main languages that your students are speaking. Yeah, and you can even ask Flint to reference specific Common Core curricula or like IB course curricula, because they can also search the web and find those curriculum pieces and incorporate those into the rubrics. So that's also just like another really quick example of like how a chat can help you with generating some things that might take a while beforehand. But yeah, this one now has the Spanish and the English in the rubric together. Yeah, and again, you can like export this and continue to edit it as you please.
Can you incorporate the rubric into an activity and then ask ChatGPT not ChatGPT, Flint to help like coach students on what they submit based on the rubric so that they iteratively improve their writing?
Yes, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And I think that's what a lot of teachers use activities for, because then, yeah, you could take this directly and like upload it into that. And actually, something cool that I can show you right now as well. Let's say we go and like make an activity for writing feedback. Then if I go here and I want to attach that rubric that I just made, it's actually already saved within Flint for me. Oh, sorry, it's because it was an older one, but let me find it. It would show up here. I think because I did that chat a while ago, it would like take a while to find. But yeah, you would be able to directly attach it from the attachments already in Flint. But of course, you could also go back to that chat, which is right here. You can copy all of this information, or you could download it and then re-upload it into Flint. But I'll just copy it and then put it into a new document. And then I can say like, use this rubric when evaluating students and make sure that they hit all of the points that are covered in the rubric. but yeah, exactly what you described. I think that's like a great way to both combine the use of like using chats to help with your process and then having that help the student experience as well. Great. Okay. So, oh, that's the wrong tab. All right. So then finally, this I promise is the last of our like really simple ones. I'm going to have Flint write an email for me. And just with this one, I want to demonstrate like this is what I do all the time at least. You can just speak to Flint and make it a lot faster for like brainstorming and like a lot more natural. So here I'll just click this microphone icon and say like, can you help me write an email to a parent, the parent of Sarah. Sarah's been doing really well in school, but she keeps forgetting to do her homework, and I want to brainstorm with the parent how to make it so that she can be more responsible in this manner. Yeah, so I often kind of just talk to Flint when it is like brainstorming or research that I'm doing, and it'll actually transcribe that for you. And then, yeah, Flint does really well with like understanding what it is that you're saying, and then it can help you create what it is that you need to do there. Yeah. And then you can even talk to it in a different language too. I've also tried this, and it's pretty good at picking up what it is that you're speaking. So I could say like, ich bin Deutschlehrerin und ich möchte, dass du dieses E-Mail auf Deutsch schreibst. So then from here, like, yeah, it recognized that I'm speaking German, and then I asked it to write the email in German, and it's also able to do that for me. Yeah, that's just like a really quicker way to kind of interact with Flint and get things done really quickly. Yeah, and it's responding to me in German now too. Yeah. Okay, and then I have two more quick examples, one for question generation. One of the specific things that someone on the registration had asked for was, can Flint help generate Harkness style questions? So here I'm saying that and asking specifically about the book 1984 by George Orwell. And I'm just giving it the context that these are 10th grade students in my World Lit class. And then here I'm also going to add a link to, here it is. This link about like, it kind of talks about like 1984, but also propaganda and all of these things. So share this tab instead. Okay, I'm gonna put this in as like a resource for students to kind of, or as like context for Flint to know of like what it is that I'm like kind of talking about in my class with these students. So what Flint is able to do is actually go to that website, read through the content there, and then use that knowledge and that context to respond to my question. Once it finishes reading that, there we go. So now it says, let me think. And it actually is able to create a bunch of different questions based on different themes of the book. And I didn't share like a synopsis of the book or like a link to the PDF or anything in this one because it's a very popular novel. But, you know, if you're like doing a reading with students that is a bit more niche or might not have a lot of information on the web about it, I would definitely give it more guidance on what the reading or whatever the content is that you uploaded is about. Yeah, and then from here, kind of like we just did with the last examples, I could actually say like, how would you turn this exercise into an interactive Flint activity? And I'm asking it to give me 3 options. And so like the thing to know here is that Flint actually knows about itself. It knows like what sorts of settings are required in activities, how activities operate, and what makes for a good activity. So here it's suggesting like a Socratic seminar simulator, perspective rotation challenge, and modern parallels investigation with current events. Yeah, so if if any of the examples that it brings up for you sound interesting, you can then ask Flint to actually create the settings for it. So let's say like, I like option 3. Can you generate the settings for this activity? And then from here, it's going to create a document with those settings. And then I can take that document and then put it directly into an activity and spin one up really quickly. Yeah. So here's that document again. Just gonna make sure that it shows up in my files. See. Maybe it's being mad at me today, but either way, with this document, I can like copy the information here because it actually goes through and shows me like what the summary should be, the greeting message, all of the settings for anything from duration to grading scale. And then now that I've copied that, I'm going to go to a new tab, just so that I don't lose the chats that we're going through so far. Click Create Custom Activity, and then I can paste all of that in here. And yeah, and then Flint should be able to create that activity for me. Yeah, so it says, perfect, I'll create this 1984 Modern Parallels Investigation activity. Yeah, so that's like another way to, generate things that you might use like in person with your students, even without Flint, but then also how you can explore how things that you've generated through that process might actually be used in Flint as well. And then it's up to you, if you want them to go through like a Socratic seminar together, or if you would rather have them all go through Flint. Maybe it's like a situation where you switch it up every once in a while. Yeah, that's one of those examples. And finally, I would say that Flint's a pretty good brainstorming partner for your own process and your own work. So yeah, I see teachers using the chats in Flint to really kind of push the boundaries of creativity that they have in various like lessons that they've been teaching for a while, or even ones that they're just starting to teach and want to try out new things for. So here I'm going to say, I always work with students on logical fallacies, but it's a bit boring to just review the definitions. Help me brainstorm some projects where students can identify or create fallacies in real life and modern scenarios. Yeah, so like this might be like a time to think about like what are things that you've always taught in like the exact same way, what could be like made to be more engaging or more creative for students. Yeah, and Sparky can be a partner in that brainstorming process to help you figure out what it is that might be a new possibility. So yeah, here there's like anything from like media analysis to production. Yeah, like a fallacy meme generator. Yeah, or you can do like a real world investigation, interactive formats. Yeah, so it gives you a lot of different ideas. You of course can like go into these ideas deeper and deeper. Let's say like maybe I really like the fallacy escape room. Could you create the settings for a Flint activity for this? And again, you can ask it to make those activity settings, and then you can easily paste those into an activity and get started. Okay, those were all of the examples that I had. Any questions about the chat usage?
Does Flint use activities that teachers have designed to help inform it about new activities to recommend?
In a very limited sense. So like in here, these are not ones that teachers have actually made. These are purely just ones that the AI that we use has come up with. The only instance where Flint is actually using like the activity itself to suggest new activities is in the analytics portion. So I can show you, I have an activity down here. Yes. Oh, wrong button. Okay, here we go. This one has some submissions to it. So this is kind of what it looks like once the students have used it. And for each student, it actually suggests a follow-up activity for how they can like improve their skills. Yeah, so like for here, it's like focus on building confidence with very basic literary device recognition. And then so here, if the student clicks create a follow-up activity, it has the context of like what the student struggled with for this one. And then in the overview page, you can also create a follow-up activity that's based on how the entire class did. But yeah, that's like the only place where we feed what has been created or what students have said back into Flint. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so there's like two more quick things that I wanted to show you all, or actually just one more quick thing. Yeah, so within the chats in Flint again, this is also where you can customize what Flint knows about you in terms of preferences and your profile. So something that we've added kind of uh, recently is memory in Flint. And so you can, if you find yourself always telling it like, hey, I'm a Spanish teacher who teaches in an IB school and I teach mostly fifth graders, like you can have Flint remember that for you. So I'm just going to put in this message of, remember that I'm a fifth grade teacher, so I need materials for my students to be friendly for younger students. And our school is an IB school in Mexico, and my students are in the primary use program, and I personally prefer your responses to be more succinct. So if I send that to Flint, it's going to say, let me memorize this. And it's actually committing that to its longer term memory. So whenever you're going back into a chat and asking for things, it's going to consider this context and help you out more specifically. So here it says, got it, I'll keep my responses brief and create age appropriate materials for your fifth grade PYP students. Yeah. And then if like you want to review what these things are or like delete any memories of Flint's, you can tell it to forget it, or you can go into your own profile. So here I'm going to my profile and profile settings. And then here you can see like the memories that Flint has created for me. So here's like the one that I just sent it. And then it has like, yeah, I think that one's also from the one that I just sent. And then there's like some older ones too. And if there's anything that is like no longer relevant or that you don't want Flint to remember, then you can just delete that, update your profile, and you'll be with a clean slate again. But yeah, that's just like a way to make it so that the chats consistently give you suggestions that are relevant to you. Okay. All right, back to my slides. Yeah, so I showed you all a bunch of different examples today, but of course, like I can't cover everything in an hour. So I've included in the slides the link to our tools library, which has a bunch more of tools basically that teachers can use to use chats to their own advantage. So anything from like, you know, SAT reading and writing practice generator to letters of recommendation, a seating chart maker. You can make jokes even with Flint. So yeah, feel free to check that out if you're like still wanting to browse and like see what different opportunities lie in Flint chats. Yeah, that is also a resource that we have there. And there's like the teacher tools and the student tools options. And then, yeah, that's all I had for my slides. Any questions, or if anyone wants to share what they've been using Flint for so far, that would also be really cool.
So,
I really like, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say I'm pretty new to Flint and was really intrigued with the activities. So did I hear you say that there was a video of a recent training on that?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Sorry that you missed that one. But I think I linked it in the slides here actually. Okay, maybe I forgot to. Oh wait, oh sorry, wait, it's at the beginning. Yeah, I can grab that link for you. You'll also get a link to these slides after this session is over though.
Okay.
But the recording is right here. Yeah, and then of course, if you have any additional questions about activities after you've reviewed that, feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, I'm always happy to meet with teachers and like figure out what it is that we can best use Flint for in their classrooms.
Thanks.
Yeah, and then Patty, did you have something to share?
I was just going to say, I like the way that it directs students within a specified context for a topic area where you're trying to get them to, write more masterfully or more specifically. I felt like it did a really good job with that.
Mm,
And I'm just curious, on, I'm really interested in creating more activities where the students can be scaffolded as appropriate for their learning. And it seems like Flint is a good tool for that. And I guess I'll have to go into the activity section to think about how to best set up parameters so that they don't get wayward and ask it about off-topic stuff.
hmm
I mean, it's good about staying within the academic realm, but I feel pretty sure that the students are like curious about testing AI to see what its limits are.
For sure, yeah. But I mean, we also have like talked to a bunch of administrators about this, and it's like, might as well have students explore here where it's got additional guardrails. We have like flagging of inappropriate messages, and if anything like really concerning in the moment happens, teachers will also, or the administrators will also get emails about that. And yeah, like you can still see like within your activities how students are responding to them. And sometimes if you tell students you can see it, they're like less prone to messing around with it. But even if they are, then you can still like see the evidence of that and have those conversations with the students afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, embarrassment may be the best self-corrector when it comes to middle schoolers.
Exactly.
The idea that I'll see it, yes.
For sure. Yeah. Huh. But yeah, it's I understand it's like it's very new. I'm sure there will be like many different things to rectify and figure out and explain to students. But yeah, hopefully like these campfire sessions and also the Flint community are places where you can connect with other educators and yeah, share solutions or share problems also. Um, but yeah, I know we only have like 5 minutes left, so don't want to like keep you all too long. But I am putting together like an actual session calendar. I understand I've mostly been just posting the links to sessions like a couple days before. So right now the plan is to make it so that like everything's planned out, you know which week is doing what. And these are some of the topics that I'm thinking of including for like the rest of the semester. If there's anything that you want to suggest, please let me know. Feel free to email me or shout it out here. Yeah, and I'll put that together soon. And then, yeah, just to wrap up, all recordings will be posted on our website at flintk12.com/webinars. But everyone on this call and everyone who registered will get a direct link to the recording. And yes, here are some final QR codes. If you all haven't joined our Instagram or Flint community yet, would highly recommend those two. The Instagram, we're posting mostly like tips that are relevant to teachers and like highlighting some use cases that teachers are coming up with. And then the community is like a space where we're trying to gather all of the Flint users and give you kind of a forum plus Q&A plus like posting site where you can share questions that you're thinking about. You can get advice from everyone. You can also even like ask for technical support, and our team is pretty active on there as well. But yeah, that's all I had. If anyone has any final questions or comments or concerns, I'll be on here for a couple more minutes. But yeah, thank you all for joining me again today.